What's up, guys? My name's Gentoo Installation, and welcome to part 2 of the Gentoo Installation Guide. So in the previous video, we set up network, we made our partitions and formatted those partitions to ext2 and ext4. We have successfully unpacked our stage 3 tarball, which is basically a bunch of Linux tools and drivers and programs that are needed to build the kernel. And now we're going to be starting to look at our make.config. So we're going to use our favorite editor, or whatever editor you choose. I'm going to be using nano -w/mnt/gentoo/etc portage/make.config. And in here, this is a configuration file used by Gentoo. There's all use variables, basically seeing what our system wants to, basically dependencies that your system needs to meet to download a program. If you emerge a program and it doesn't show up here that you want a certain dependency or you want a certain program downloaded, then it won't show up and it won't let you download it. You have to go into you go into your make.config and then add a use variable. And I'll be showing this off a little bit later on in the tutorial. We don't have to edit this. There's ways to edit it now that I haven't really figured out myself, basically. But there's a bunch of different things you could even do now to make things run better. So next is the installing of the base system. So we'll clear this out and we will start our mirror select. So we'll go type in mir mirror select -i -o /mnt/gentoo/etc portage /make.config. Alright, great. So it's going to be grabbing the mirror list, and here we go, and I'm just going to check how that looks on your screen. Look good. And we're going to be selecting mirrors. So this is the mirrors near you. I'm in the United States, East Coast United States, so I'm going to be trying to pick the ones near me. So I usually pick Rochester, so we'll pick a few of the Rochester ones, and I think that's pretty much, I usually only do like 3, and we'll press OK, or enter, clear this out, and there we go. Now we have our mirrors selected. Next is for the making the directory of repos. So we're going to do mkdir /mnt/gentoo/etc/portage repos.config. That's done. We'll copy paste /mnt. This is just copying and pasting some configuration files to one place or another. usr share portage /config /repos.config. Alright, great. We'll space. We'll do /mnt/gentoo/etc/portage /repos.config /gentoo.config. So we're copy pasting from one place to the other, and there we go. Great. So we can just check here if we have everything working. So we can, I'll actually just throw this up and erase this, so just so I don't have to type it out again. We'll do nano this, and just to make sure there is something in here, and we've seen that the configuration file has successfully moved everything over. So that's good. We'll clear this out again. And we're going to be copying DNS. So we're about to chroot into our new environment. So after stage 3, we basically have a basic Gentoo installation without a kernel. That's what stage 3 really is. It's basically everything that Linux is without a kernel. Once we chroot into it or chroot into it, then we will start to configure the kernel. So this is a very important step here. It's copy paste -l. So cp-l /etc/resolve with no e .config /mnt/gentoo/etc/. That will just get our network configuration over to our new environment. If you don't do this step, more than likely you will not have network connectivity when we try to do things in our new environment. So here, this is an area that I just do it, but I'm not sure how necessary all these steps will be, but we're still going to do it regardless. And there's a lot of mounting we have to do. So we'll do mount/t proc /mnt Gentoo PROC. That's one. Mount --rbind /sys mnt gentoo sys. And just let me know in the comment section below if you're better at Gentoo Linux than I am, which many might actually be. I'm just a noob at this at the moment. If all these mounting commands are actually necessary, I usually just do them just to be safe, because I'm not really sure which one takes precedent over the rest of them. So I just usually do all of them. So just run these commands, and we'll continue after this. So make r slave mnt gentoo /dev. Oh, spelled something wrong. There it is. mnt. There we go. Alright, so just run all those commands, just mounting a bunch of different file systems and folders for our installation. Alright, so now we're going to be entering our new environment. So I'll clear this out. We're going to chroot /mnt /gentoo /bin/bash. That's step 1. Source /etc/profile is to export the kind of chroot label onto our name here. So ps1 equals parentheses and quotes chroot. Okay, and space $ps1. There we go. Great. So now that we are chrooted, we're inside the installation. So now we're going to be configuring Portage. Before we do that, we're going to make sure we still have internet connectivity. This is a very crucial step. If you don't, you cannot continue. Very similar to Arch Linux, you need to have internet. And we do. If you do not, again, look at the handbook, try to troubleshoot yourself. Like before, we all have different hardware. So before you go screaming in the comment section that something doesn't work, you have to go look on your own, because I can't solve all the problems because I don't have that type of hardware in front of me. If you have 32-bit, if you're using network drivers, if you have a network card, all hardware is different, and it's kind of different. It's hard for me to troubleshoot something I don't have in front of me. Alright, so here's an optional step. We can update the Portage tray, which we'll be running. Here's where we're going to be first kind of greeted with emerge, which is kind of equivalent to Pacman, but a little bit different because Gentoo doesn't really have a package management system except for ebuilds, which is kind of almost a set of rules for compiling from source. So everything is compiled from source. So emerge sync. There we go. Okay, so the first time I ran that, for some reason, internet connectivity like hopped off for a second. Okay, so this is what emerge sync is supposed to look when you're emerging and syncing with the main server Portage tree of Gentoo. Alright, great. So for me, that took a little bit. It took a few minutes. For you, it took only a second from watching this with the power of editing. But for you, it might take a little bit longer or shorter than me, depending on what has to be synced. So once that's finished, we can move on to selecting a basic system configuration. Alright, so the next step is going to be selecting a profile. Now, selecting a profile is basically telling your system what to grab and what not to grab. It sets the use variables, like I showed you before. It sets the global use variables to be ready for the system coming. Now, unfortunately, we're limited as we're using VirtualBox. So we'll type in eselect profile list. And right here we have a bunch of different profiles. As you see, I already have selected one, which is 3. So you may be wondering why we're here. We're here is because on VirtualBox, a lot of things are slower. A lot of things. RAM is slower. It's not real. It's all virtualized stuff. So things run a lot slower. So for time-wise, actually emerging 3 or 4 will take hours. They will take tremendous amounts of time that we really don't have for almost days. I waited like 20 minutes with stage 3, selecting 3, and it took 20 minutes to get to part 3 out of 162 files and programs to emerge. So absolutely not. I can't sit through that. Again, if you are going to be doing this on a real machine or testing out with VirtualBox, highly recommend just sitting through it. But for tutorial's sake, I'm going to be reselecting a profile. So eselect profile set 1. I'm going to be selecting 1, and I'll try to emerge again And we'll see not many things are going to be grabbed, actually nothing to merge because everything is already here. So that lets us move to the next step. And I did this already before on my own machine, and it was actually a very easy step just to keep going from here. All right, so configuring the use variable. So we'll run a command right now. It's emerge --info. If you press shift and the button above enter, I'll give you the straight line down. Grep, and then shift 6, use. And these are all the use variables that are here, the global use variables. And this is actually truncated. There's a lot more than this, and you can actually look at them and see them. All right, so /etc/portage /make.config. Now this is, we have to nano. So this is our make.config. You'll be in this file a lot, right? A lot. So in here, this is where you're going to be setting a lot of different use variables. And we're going to get into this a little bit more when we start emerging our desktop and things like that. So in here we'll have GNOME or Qt5, Qt4, DVD, ALSA for sound, things like that. And it's very easy to find with the Gentoo wiki. You can look up, basically if you look up the program you want, like GNOME or VLC, you look up VLC Gentoo, and then you'll get the use variables that you need to put in here, and then you can emerge from there. So that's one thing we'll be doing later on. We don't have to do anything right now. All right, cool. So next thing is to set time zone. So we'll do ls. Just want to make sure I'm recording. That'd be funny if I wasn't. That's happened before. That won't be the first time. Alright, we'll do ls/user usr/share/zone info. For me, I already know my zone, but you can cd into one of these files. So you actually can cd into one of these and say, like, you can do cd. We'll do, instead of this, we can do cd/user/zone info/America. And then you can do ls and then see all the things in here. So for me, I'm going to do echo. America, not Europe. America. Make sure I'm spelling that right, because in my Arch Linux tutorial I did not, because I'm amazing at spelling. And New York, that's where I live. And then /etc/time zone. After that, we're going to do, clear this out for tidiness, emerge config sys-libs/time zone data. Cool. So updating. Great. Configuring locals. So next we're going to configure locals. It's a nano -w/etc/local.gen. Alright, here we're going to go down to EN, depending on the region or country you live in. EN US UTF-8. That's my region and local code. Once we do that, we'll do local, just like Arch Linux. We used to do this, well, actually cd out of that. We'll do local-gen. And we generated that. Perfect. Great. We're also going to select it in eSelect. So eSelect, local list, only 3, because one of them we uncommented out. So we're going to select one of these. So eSelect, local list, set 3. eSelect, local list, set 3. Oh. Not list. There we go. Sorry about that. eSelect local set 3. Fantastic. You can manually select that. And the next thing we have to do is just update our environment. So env-update and source /etc/profile and again export ps1 equals parentheses exclamation point, whatever it's called, I don't know, $ ps1 regenerated. Great. Excellent. So now we're going to go to configuring the kernel. And this is actually a major step, because configuring the kernel is a big deal. This is basically what our system will be after this. So we're going to emerge Gentoo sources. This is a very important step. If you miss this step, you will not be successfully generating a kernel. So emerge as sys kernel / Gentoo - sources. Yes, I want to emerge. And this is going to take a long time. So once that finally finishes, we're going to be running the next command, which is ls-1, I think that's a 1, /user /src/linux. Turns out it's not a 1. It is actually an L, because 1 and L look the same. Okay, so that's what we just had to check. Linux 4.4.6 - Gentoo. Great. Alright, so now we've come to the crossroads. The debate between manual configuration of the kernel or GenKernel, which is the automatic configuration of the kernel. I'm going to be going with GenKernel, but go ahead and feel free to stop the tutorial here and just generate the kernel manually. And it's not that hard. Again, the handbook, step by step, it will show you how. They're very similar in a lot of ways. So we are not going to be using the manual configuration. We're going to be taking the easy way out, or the lazy way out, and doing GenKernel, which is it streamlines the process a lot. So we'll clear this out. We will do emerge ask sys - kernel / GenKernel. Yes. And after this is over, we'll continue on with the generation of a default kernel. So GenKernel just finished emerging, and next we are going to be editing our fstab file for the first time. So let's clear everything out. We'll do nano -w /etc /fstab. And in here is a default fstab. What we have to do is just edit this a little bit just to make it work. So we're going to do right here /dev. We're going to change that out for SDA2. SDA2 /boot ext2. That's all we're going to change for now. Yeah. Actually, we'll change this from no time to defaults. And then these can stay. I guess we'll change it to what the tutorial says. So /dev /sda2 /boot ext2 defaults. There we go. So we'll do Control X and then Y for yes and enter. And now we've edited the boot file. So we've shown where the boot partition will be. Next is a very simple command. It is GenKernel all. And GenKernel all is the command we're going to be using. And this will begin the generation of the Linux kernel. Kernel 4.4.6 - Gentoo for x86-64. This will take a little bit. Not too long, but it still will finish in a little while. So I'll come back to you once this is completed. So now that GenKernel has been successfully done, and now we have basically a generic kernel. And it supports the generic hardware. And I find this easiest for this tutorial at least, because we don't have to play around with knowing everything in every nook and cranny of your computer to make sure everything works. We have this very generic kernel that is like a Linux kernel, is very compatible with mostly every system, or a lot of systems. So once we do that, we're going to do the next step, is going to be configuring the system. Now configuring the system is going into fstab again and reconfiguring all of our basic boot priorities and hard drives. So we're going to go in there with nano -w /etc /fstab. And we're here. In here we have to make some minor changes. For me, I don't have a CD-ROM, I don't have a floppy drive, CD-ROM, I don't have swap, but I do have root, and that will stay. So it's going to become SDA3, and it's going to change to ext4. Not 5, 4. Once we do that, let's see, one more. I have reference fstab next to me, so I can make sure everything's good. So, we'll add the tag right here, no A-time. We can add that to that, and we can just tab that over for neatness. So defaults, no A-time. Okay, great. Root ext4. That's perfect. All right, good. So that's pretty much it for my stab. You may have to do more configuration for your own, so I recommend looking up a configuration file. I'm using the default one basically on the Gentoo handbook as my kind of guide, but I know my partitions and where they're going to go. So we can do Control X and press Y to accept and Enter to write the changes. So once that is finished, we're going to go through networking information host and domain name. So what we're going to do now is declare our host name. So it's going to be nano-w/etc/config.d/host name. Great. Set the local host name for this machine. Local host name equals tux, just like the tutorial. Why not? Good. So next we're going to run nano-w/etc/config.d/net. In here, we're going to put DNS_domain_lo equals. And I'm just going to put it to the default as a tutorial home network. Perfect. Great. Bam. So this will set the DNS domain low variable to the selected domain name. Figuring the network. So what we're going to emerge now is going to help us get networks later on. Emerge. Ask. No replace. net-misc/net ifrc. And we're going to emerge this package. So that has added that. The world favorite file. Perfect. We're also going to do IP link again, just to get the name ready. So enp0s3, we're going to do nano-w/etc/config.d/net. So we have this domain, and now we're going to put underneath this config. So config _enp0s3 equals DHCP. Perfect. And Control X and Y to accept that. Automatically starting network at boot. We're definitely going to configure this up so we don't have to do anything with it later. I just noticed the chroot is changed to chroot. Yay. Okay. /etc/init.d. init.d. Perfect. ln-s net.low. No, yet net.low, but net ln-s net.low net.enp0s3. There you go. rc-update add net.enp0s3 0s3 default. Service.net.enp0s3 added to run level default. So every time we boot, we're going to have this. It might be different for you. Again, this enp0s3 might be your own. That's why you have to do the IP link command. Yep. All right. So the host file. Host file now we have to edit. So let's just cd out of that. As you notice, I mentioned a second ago that my chroot says churot. And that's because my inability to spell things. But that's because I did that because before I changed off camera, I changed one of my mirror lists away from the pairs mirror list, the pairs server, to only Rochester, because I was having issues emerging with others. So if you're having problems emerging and they're very slow downloads and they're very slow emerge times, it could be because bad mirrors. So you might have to just exit out of the chroot and then redo it. It doesn't really matter what the name on the left says. That's just a thing to tell you where you are. So after that being said, let's continue with editing our host file. So etc/hosts. Here we are. Great. So I think we're gonna what we're gonna type in is tux.home network tux localhost. That's pretty much it. That is it for that. Bam and bam. So since I use what the tutorial did, I can copy that exactly. Optional get PCMI working. I don't think we need that. Let's set the root password. Kind of important. So password PSSWD. I'll set a simple password for me. Bad password, way too short. Yay, thank you. And there we go. Here, init and boot configuration. So this is just some things we're just going to check here. So nano-w/etc/rc.config. There's a lot of comments. It even says in the tutorial, thank you. Like, you'll appreciate all these comments. Enjoy all the comments in this file. I've never really changed anything in this. It's a lot to go through. We'll do nano-w. We'll just take a look at key maps just to make sure everything's set all right with key maps. Key maps. Okay. US looks good. Looks all good. Okay. Great. Don't have to edit anything in here. We are gonna, we don't even have to change that either. No, it doesn't, I've never had it where it's a problem. Okay. We'll grab some optional things just so we can get it. We'll add a system logger. So we'll do emerge ask app-admin /sys klogd. It's going to emerge this, yes. Clear this out. We'll do an rc-update. Add sys klogd default. That's been added as default. Great. We're also going to add a cron daemon, because why not? We need one of those eventually. Ask sys-process cronny. Yes, we will emerge that. So emerging is very similar to like pack manning a package or a program, except it's doing it from source in this situation. Very similar. Once you get used to it, like once you keep doing it a lot, you start to get used to it, and it becomes very custom, and it doesn't feel as different as you might first think it is. We'll add cronny as default. Cron tips, okay. Let's do optional file indexing, emerge, ask, sys-apps, mlocate. Yes. All right, so here's a crucial step. We have to emerge file types, so file systems, basically. So what we're going to do is emerge, ask, sys-fs/e2fsprogs. Now this will give us support for ext2, 3, and 4. And we need that because we have our root as ext3 and 4. Well, we root as ext4 and our boot as ext2. So we need the system to be able to understand those files types. So networking tools. We need to install dhcpcd. Very important. So emerge ask net-misc/dhcpcd. Bam. Yes. We need these. Alright, that's going to emerge now, and then we're going to go on to the bootloader, and we're actually going to go to that in the next video. So, as always, my name's Gentoo Installation. I hope you enjoyed the second part of the Gentoo installation guide, and I will see you guys, not the final part, not even close to final, third part of the tutorial, where we're going to be configuring the bootloader and hopefully being able to reboot into our new Gentoo system.